She was promised to a ruthless capo, a refined predator in a tailored suit, offering her a future of silken chains and silent despair. But temptation drew her elsewhere, to the beast kept on a leash, the enforcer whose hands were stained with blood, and whose gaze carried the weight of death itself. Choosing him was madness, rebellion, and surrender all at once. In the ruthless world of the Mafia, desire could be as lethal as betrayal, and one whispered vow would bind her to a passion fierce enough to spark a war. No one suspected that her defiance, born of longing and desperation, would unravel the syndicate from the inside out. The grand hall of the Luciano estate was silent, save for the heavy clink of chains. Two soldiers dragged a man forward as if he were a rabid animal, shoving him to the polished marble floor. His knuckles were raw and bloody, his tailored suit jacket torn, revealing a torso corded with muscle and etched with the tattoos of a soldier. A fresh cut bled above his brow, dripping onto the pristine floor. His name was Viktor Volkov, the Bratva's most feared torpedo, a ghost of violence and fury. He'd broken through their defenses like a demon, a one-man war against the Luciano family, but now he was on his knees before Don Luciano and his entire court. The Don rose from his high-backed chair, the sound echoing. "Look at him," Don Luciano's voice boomed. "The Russian dog who dared to stain my home with the blood of my men. He'll be feeding the fishes by sunrise." The assembled made men nodded their approval, a chorus of grim assent. Among them, Silvio Rossi, the Don's cruel, ambitious underboss, smiled thinly. His gaze swept over Viktor like he was a prize stallion that had been broken, then landed on the Don's daughter Sofia, who stood rigid and silent by her father's side. Wrapped in a sheath of crimson silk, she held her chin high, but her hands were fists at her sides. She'd heard the stories about Volkov, his brutal efficiency, his terrifying loyalty, the way he'd decimated rival crews. Seeing him now, brought low, she didn't feel fear. She felt a terrifying, thrilling spark of recognition. There was a fire in his blue eyes that not even chains could extinguish. Silvio stepped forward, smoothing his tie. "Don Luciano, it would be my pleasure to oversee this disposal. An animal like him doesn't deserve the clean death of a bullet." The Don nodded. "And you shall, Silvio. But first, we remember this day also marks a new alliance for our family." The air went still. Sofia's breath hitched. She knew what was coming. "I announce," the Don continued, "the marriage of my daughter Sofia to Silvio Rossi. Our families will be one." Forced applause filled the room. Sofia's stomach turned. Silvio was a monster, known for the bruises he left on his mistresses and the cold-blooded murders he ordered. A serpent in an Armani suit. Viktor slowly lifted his head, and for a heartbeat, his piercing gaze locked with Sofia's. It was just a second, but it felt like an eternity. He didn't see a pampered princess, he saw a caged bird. And she didn't see a mindless beast, she saw a formidable man, broken but unbroken. "Guards, take this trash back to the cellar," the Don ordered. As they dragged him away, the chains scraping against the floor, Sofia made a silent vow. That man would not die, because if he did, she would perish too, locked in a gilded cage with a monster. For the first time, a dangerous, insane thought took root. What if her salvation was in that chained prisoner? The scent of expensive cigar smoke and perfume hung heavy in the air. Sofia walked beside her father, a serene mask glued to her face while panic clawed at her throat. In the center of the room, Silvio waited, dressed in a suit that cost more than most cars, a cold, possessive gleam in his eyes. "Sofia," he said, taking her hand. His touch was like ice. "You will be my most beautiful acquisition." She forced herself not to flinch. Her eyes scanned the crowd and found Viktor, flanked by guards at the back of the room, his hands still bound. They'd brought him to witness her humiliation. Her father began his speech about unity and strength, but Sofia wasn't listening. Her entire being was focused on the silent communication between her and the Russian prisoner. His stare was a tangible thing, a rope thrown across a chasm, pulling her toward him. Later that night, in her opulent suite, she shattered a crystal vase against the wall. "I will not be his," She changed into black, moving through the secret passages of the mansion she'd explored as a girl, down to the wine cellar that served as a temporary prison. The guard was asleep, drunk on stolen whiskey. She took his keys with steady hands. Viktor was sitting against a rack of vintage Bordeaux, his shoulders tense. He looked up, shock flaring in his eyes. "Printessa, have you lost your mind?" "Probably," she whispered, her heart hammering. "My father is giving me to Silvio Rossi. I'd rather be given to you." He let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh that was more of a growl. "To me? A dead man walking?" "Precisely. If I'm married to you, my father can't annul it without looking weak. And if I have to belong to someone, I choose the man who fights to survive over the one who preys on the weak." The silence between them was charged, electric. He studied her, seeing not a foolish girl but a woman of steel. "You understand, a marriage to me won't be a protection," he said, his voice a low rasp that vibrated through her. "It will be a war." A slow, defiant smile touched her lips. "Then let's start a war." He didn't touch her that night, not like that. But when she knelt to pick the lock on his cuffs, her fingers brushed the raw skin of his wrists, and a current shot up her arm. When she led him through the dark passages, his large, powerful body moving silently behind her, she felt a heat that had nothing to do with fear. They were married an hour later in the estate's private chapel. Her witnesses were the family's aging, loyal driver and her personal bodyguard, a woman who knew too much. The priest was paid handsomely for his silence and his haste. Viktor stood beside her, still wearing the torn, blood-stained clothes, looking more like a dark avenger than a groom. When he said, "I do," his voice was a vow of vengeance and possession that made her knees weak. The door burst open. Don Luciano stood there, fury incarnate, with a livid Silvio at his shoulder. "What is the meaning of this?" the Don roared. "My choice," Sofia stated, her voice not wavering. Silvio drew a gun. "This is a farce. He's a dead man." "He is my husband," Sofia said, stepping slightly in front of Viktor, a move that made his eyes flare with something fierce and protective. The Don, ever a pragmatist, saw the done deal. He saw the witnesses, the priest, the set of his daughter's jaw. To kill Viktor now would make him a martyr, and Sofia a widow, complicating everything. "Get out," the Don seethed, his eyes promising 1,000 future retributions. "Get out of my sight." Back in a guarded suite, the tension was a live wire. Viktor finally turned to her, his gaze intense. "This changes nothing," he said. "He will come for us. Not with bullets first, but with whispers. He will try to turn us against each other. And will we let him?" Sofia challenged, closing the distance between them. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, his hand came up, his calloused thumb brushing her cheekbone. The touch was shockingly gentle. "No, Printessa. We will not." The dam broke. His mouth crashed down on hers, not with gentleness, but with a raw, claiming hunger that stole her breath. It was a kiss of war, of alliance, of pure, unadulterated need. She kissed him back with equal fervor, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. Clothes were torn, not removed. His hands mapped her body with a soldier's intensity, learning her curves, finding the places that made her gasp. He lifted her against the wall, and she wrapped her legs around his waist, the hard ridge of his arousal pressing against her core through the layers of their clothing. "Tell me you want this," he growled against her neck, his breath hot. "I want this," she panted. "I want you." He carried her to the bed, his body covering hers, a delicious, crushing weight. There was no more talking, only the language of skin on skin, of ragged breaths and desperate touches. When he entered her, it was with a single, powerful thrust that made her cry out, a mix of pain and perfect, shocking pleasure. He stilled, letting her adjust, his forehead pressed to hers, his eyes holding hers captive. "This is what you chose," he murmured, his voice thick with an emotion she couldn't name. "Yes," she breathed and began to move, and it was frantic, passionate, a claiming and a surrender. It was the first battle in their war, and they fought it together, falling over the edge in a tangled, breathless heap. Days passed. They were prisoners of a different sort now, isolated under the guise of protection. The rumors were the true poison. I heard he cornered her in the library. What choice did she have? The Don is just biding his time. He's keeping the Russian close to find his weakness. She cries herself to sleep every night. At first, Sofia tried to laugh it off, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. Viktor, a man whose life depended on reading threats, saw the subtle shift in a guard's posture, the barely concealed smirk on a servant's face. He saw the world confirming his deepest fear, that he was a beast who had tarnished her. The distrust began to seep under their door. Where there was once easy silence, now there was a weighty, unspoken tension. Sofia would find Viktor staring out the window, his body a rigid line of contained fury, unreachable. He, in turn, would see her lost in thought, a faint line of worry between her brows, and he would mistake it for regret. They started arguing over nothing. A misplaced glance, a word left unsaid. "You think I believe their lies?" she snapped one evening after he'd questioned a servant's lingering presence a moment too long. "I think you've never lived with lies that can kill you before, Princessa," he retorted, his voice cold. "You play at war in your father's house. I was born in one." The breaking point came on the third night of this cold war. Sofia had turned away from him, feigning sleep, when she felt the bed dip. His hand clamped on her shoulder, not roughly, but with a desperate intensity, and he flipped her onto her back, pinning her wrists to the mattress on either side of her head. His powerful body loomed over her in the moonlight, his face a mask of raw, anguished fury. "Enough," he growled, his voice a low, dangerous vibration in the dark. "You look at me like I am one of them, like I am the monster they say I am," he accused, his body heat searing through her clothes. "Do you regret your choice? Tell me now." The question wasn't a demand, it was a plea. "You're pulling away," she fired back. He kissed her, hard and desperate. It was a clash of teeth and tongues, a fight that quickly morphed into a different kind of frenzy. He tore her blouse, his mouth finding her, sucking hard enough to brand her. She clawed at his back, leaving marks of her own. Afterward, lying on the cold floor, breathless, he held her. "I will never let them take you from me," he vowed, his voice raw. Never. The final play came when Don Luciano, enraged by their resilience, moved to start a full-scale war with Viktor's Bratva family, threatening to wipe them out. Sofia confronted her father. "You break your own rules now? You're not a Don. You're a coward with a crown." Viktor knew he had to go. He had to warn his people. Their goodbye was in the garage, surrounded by the smell of gasoline. "If I don't come back," he said, cupping her face. "You will," she said, pulling him down for a searing kiss, pouring every ounce of her defiance into it. "And I'll be waiting." He drove off into the night. But Sofia Luciano Volkov was done waiting. She rallied her own allies, disgruntled capos, loyal soldiers who were tired of Silvio's cruelty, the people her father had forgotten. She found Viktor on a war-torn street in Sicily, standing amidst his men. He turned and saw her, not a Mafia Princess, but a queen, standing tall amidst the chaos. "I didn't come to hide behind you," she said, her voice ringing clear. "I came to fight by your side." Together, they turned. They faced down her father's and Silvio's combined forces, not just with bullets, but with the truth, exposing their corruption and weakness. One by one, soldiers lowered their weapons, switching sides. In the end, Don Luciano was overthrown, not killed, but stripped of his power. Silvio Rossi met a far more final end. They stood in the ruins of the old regime, not as a Don and his wife, but as partners. Viktor pulled her to him, his kiss a promise of fire, family, and a future they would build together, on their own terms. She'd chosen the prisoner, and together they had stolen a kingdom.
If this story stirred your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a dose of love dopamine. I'll keep bringing you more tales of passion, heartbreak, and redemption crafted for the ones who still believe in love. And if you stayed until the very end, thank you. You're the kind of soul who believes in love, even when it hurts. Love harder, dream deeper. Until the next heartbeat.